It'll be fine.
Velt. And that's all right.
I don't know what all these buttons do. Okay. I'm learning, man. I'm learning. Well, that just doesn't stop, does
Well,
it?
fucking turn it off.
I'm trying. Oh, that's lovely.
What's the twerps?
It's just crazy. Apparently, it never.
One flew over the cuckoo.
Say what?
place.
Oh, okay.
Right.
What do you? Yeah. Oh, there we go. Thank God. I was like, man, we can't do a show with that.
You can't. It's going to be that the whole time.
That'd
Apparently,
be one
it's
of those
set for like 15, 20
That'd be one of
seconds.
those things where like people will be listening and be like, God, what is going on?
There's a problem here. All right. I guess we're.
What was Jalen Carter previously ranked?
All right, ready?
I love these Letterman.
We got cue cards?
I love these Letterman cards, man.
What is that?
Yeah.
The answer. the answer is
Yeah.
Yeah, you got any gum? Yeah.
like good Letterman.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, go ahead and launch our Facebook stat, too. All right, good. We're live. Hey, everybody, welcome to the UGA Sports Live podcast. My name is Rodney DeBolsi. I'm joined by Jake Roos and Hall of Fame coach Jim Donnan, former Georgia Bulldogs head coach and star of the show, the reason everyone's tuning in. We are live at Champy's on Baxter Street. You really want to swing by here and come get some of this fantastic food they have, so the best fried chicken you'll have in your life. You get fried chicken liver. I know you don't find that everywhere. Fried green tomatoes, tamales.
Get you some banana pudding or dirt pudding.
Oh, yeah. So, fantastic stuff here. Great place to come by and watch the Super Bowl. If you're looking for a place to catch it, this would be a good place to see Mecole Hardman get his ring.
Yeah, not bad.
Just saying, come place to come check it out. And, of course, we want to give a big shout-out to all of our other sponsors, Athens Ford, Air and Overhead Doors, Your Pie, Academia Brewing Company, 365 Game Day, which is where you're watching this show. If you're watching it on Facebook, you're watching it on 365 Game Day. And then we're going to share it with 11 Alive, our corporate partners, our news breaking partners. Great stuff over at 11 Alive. Check them out as well. Busy week, guys.
I thought the off season was going to be like light. Anything but, man.
I actually had someone hit me up, Coach, and say, hey, can you watch my dog? Because I know it's the off season for you now.
Yeah.
I'm like, your dog will stop. They're going out of town. They're like, hey, could you watch the dog? I'm like, I'll be happy to, but that dog's going to be as lonely as mine is.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's not going to happen.
Well, it all broke when you left town.
This is
You're
true.
going down to Valdosta.
Yeah, and thanks to everybody in Valdosta and the friends at the Georgia Beer Company for hooking us up with a bunch of beer. Went down there to speak to the Azalea City Civil Club. And on my way out of town that morning, we broke the news that Todd Monken is now the new offensive coordinator at the University of Georgia. Coach, let's get your thoughts on Todd Monken.
Well, first of all, I want to say that when you're wrong, you're wrong. And I was wrong about stepping out on saying that there weren't going to be any changes. That was just what I
think there would either.
That's what I thought based on the MO of what was going on before the bowl and during the bowl. But, that's why Kirby's the head coach, and that's why, we have these shows, this conjecture a lot of times, and certainly don't have any inside scoop on what went down and why it went down. You certainly feel bad for anybody's family when something like this happens. For Coach Coley, I feel like we've been very supportive of him. But in the case of Todd, I've known him for several years, and he's a very good football coach. I had a chance to cover some of his games when we were doing Conference USA. And when you get to go watch them practice and, you have those meetings with the coaches to talk about what's going on. It was pretty evident he very much take charge guy, and he had Chip Lindsey there for his last couple years. That Chip was a really good young coach, and he was bringing him along and kind of mixing up some of the duties there. But I think just the fact that this is a real shot for Todd. When you look at his career, I mean, he's had some really good offenses, but not on the stage that he's getting ready to have. I mean, you know, Tampa Bay is not really a contending team, and Cleveland last year, you know, so now he's coming into a top 5 program and have a chance to, you know, direct the offense with a really good supporting cast. And I feel like that's certainly somebody Kirby had a chance to, you know, look around the country, and this was a guy that he felt good about, and I feel good about him. I like everything that I've ever dealt with him. He's been very professional, and, you know, he's a very rigorous, tough coach that coaches them up, and that's what you need in today's football. You got to be able to run the ball. You know, they had Ito Smith when I was there, who's playing for the Falcons now, and they had a really good quarterback that's, you know, backup for the 49ers, but they really put up some big numbers, and going to be a big spring for him here with this new transfer, and then the guys that we got on board. And I've heard that that they really are counting on Dwan to be cut loose this spring. I don't know anything official's been put out on that, but hopefully he's going to be cleared, and we can see what he can do along with Beck and even this Priestley kid who, you know, has got some ability. So we got a pretty full quarterback room right now. And then the other addition with Buster Faulkner, who I've known ever since he played at Parkview High School, followed his career, you know, playing at Valdosta, and then coaching a lot of different stops, Middle Tennessee, covered some of their games, and Arkansas State, and now Southern Miss. You know, almost came here. He was within about 5 hours of coming here last year, and then he got that job at the last second as a coordinator of Southern Miss, and they went on to a really big year offensively, played in the bowl game, got their quarterback hurt, and a couple guys in the bowl, so he didn't play as well. But Buster knows Georgia. You know, he's from Parkview. He knows the area, and he'll be kind of like, I would think, kind of like Jay Johnson, you know, an off-the-field guy that can lend a lot of expertise on RPOs and, you know, spread offense. But, you know, it remains to be seen what's going to happen with James Coley. So we'll see about that. But two really good additions. I don't know if Watson's still going to be around. He's done a good job too. So a lot of things up in the air, so we'll see what happens.
Some numbers on Todd Monken, tweeted out by Georgia after his hiring. 2018 was the offensive coordinator for the Tampa Bay Bucks, first in passing offense, third in total offense in the NFL. That was with Jameis Winston and Ryan Fitzmagic. 2015 Southern Miss head coach, second team in college football history to have a 4,000-yard passer and two 1,000-yard rushers in 2015. 2012 Oklahoma State offensive coordinator, fourth in total yards. 2011 Oklahoma State offensive coordinator, third in total offense, second passing offense, second in scoring offense. So a guy who's been able to put together some pretty prolific passing attacks over the course of his career.
I think the job he did with old Whedon there, who was a baseball prospect that came out of the minor leagues and then came on and played for OSU, was just unbelievable. And they had that Blackburn kid at receiver. And we know over the years, Oklahoma State's always been very, very good offensively. They've had some really good coordinators. The coach at Houston now, I think Todd might have taken his place there, you know, and continue that air raid type deal they were doing. I don't think Todd's quite as much geared to the air raid as he is the pro style. And
you're stealing my question because I was going to ask you, is the air raid coming?
Yeah. I don't think in Kirby's lifetime. Unless,
Okay.
We might, maybe few in practice, but you know, Kirby's very flexible, though. I mean, I think sometimes we get a little.
That's not what we've heard. We've been told he's stubborn.
No, well, he is. I'm talking about he's flexible about offensive approach. He'll do what the players can do, and we put up some really big numbers there in 17. I mean, really huge numbers when you look at it.
Sure.
So, but I think the good point about being a CFO or CEO is you do what you got to do for the program, and that's what Kirby's done throughout his career here. And I think some of these numbers sometimes are skewed a little bit most of the passing records are broken on teams that aren't winning on a big scale. I think that was what really helped Todd at USM was the fact they were multiple and ran the ball well, and they had a really big year his last year there, and it just surprised the heck out of me when he went to the pros from there because they really looked like they were getting ready to just go up to the next level in that league because of the way they recruited. But, you know, he had a existing relationship with the head coach of the Tampa Bay team, and it was a great shot for him to go right there and be an offensive coordinator in the NFL. So, I mean, you got to look at it, and he took it. So you usually don't see head coaches leaving a head job, though.
I want to tell you about two things I was told by other coaches. One was about Todd Monken. They said, we'd love for him to come back to Southern Miss. You know, so the people in Hattiesburg, they're like, that guy, they would vouch for him very much so. And then I had another one talk about Buster Faulkner. Again, he won't be out on the recruiting trail, but this coach said, look, I go head-to-head with him on the recruiting trail, and he's really good, especially inside Gwinnett. And I'm like, well, you know, that's kind of a good place to be good. So if he can identify talent, he knows how to get kids to, to go see, follow him, wherever he's at. That's pretty good. So if he's in the film room, if he's looking over prospects, trying to help, Marshall Malchow and those guys, say, hey, here I am. I think that's two offensive. And then add Matt Luke in.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. So you got Matt Luke, Monken, and then Buster. That's pretty good.
If you can mention Dell and Todd Hartley, I mean, that's a good staff. But I would say this about recruiting and about it doesn't have to do with any individual or anybody's significance or insignificance, but I don't really know of anybody in the history that I can remember of the staff here at Georgia that wasn't a good recruiter at Georgia. I mean, you walk in the door with a lead on anybody you go. So, it's hard to replace guys I know in different areas. I mean, certain areas of the country, and that'll be difficult for us in South Florida for sure, because Coley had that same edge there because he's got such a good rep with the coaches. But boy, you're going to recruit at Georgia now. You're going to have a built-in advantage, but you're going against some good teams now. Clemson's on fire recruiting, Alabama, and looks like LSU. I mean, so I think getting Buster to help augment, maybe talking to some of these kids on the phone or when they come in, which they can do, will help because, Kirby, there's some in-state guys we lost last year, but, for certain reasons. But looks like we're out to a good start on the in-state one for 2021, that's for sure.
We got a couple questions here. You mentioned, James Coley, like we said, a lot of speculation about what's going to happen for him next step. Will he stay on staff? We don't know that yet. We've heard that there's been communication with other staffs that are interested. Texas A&M primarily mentioned among those names.
I think that's a natural assumption.
Sure.
Just because they have a job open and he was, previously worked for Jimbo at LSU and at Florida State, and then he was offered a job there. But career-wise, at this point, I think this is a big juncture for him, And to me, I would say I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't go to the pros myself because it's a really good step for him. He used to work with Jason Garrett. He's got a lot of ties in Florida. But I got no insight on that, but
speaking of, I actually heard that he has some NFL offers, and I guess maybe people would point to that Garrett relationship, but I'd heard that there are some offers on the table for him, which, from just like you said, from a professional standpoint, I'd love to see him take one simply because he'd be able to turn to folks and say, look, not that he would ever do it, because James isn't, petty like that, but he could say, look, a lot of you people think I'm only just a strong recruiter. You didn't get any credit as offensive coordinator, but being a strong recruiter doesn't get you to the NFL. They don't give a damn if you're a strong recruiter. That doesn't help you any. Whatever you're a good coach.
They like for you to be an evaluator of talent, though.
Yeah.
I mean, and get develop the talent. And I think see what happens here. We got the Senior Bowl this week. Somebody might, a lot of things break down there. We'll I think. It's not fair to do any conjecture on my part because I don't have any.
I like the idea that Coley if he stays at Georgia, they have a fantastic recruiter. I mean, if you look at all those 5 stars and 4 stars, all the kid he's pulled from Florida, it is just a who's who.
Sure.
I mean, if Miami, FSU, the Gators had those same kids, we're talking a completely different outlook.
Big on this last guy that just came in here with Jamie Newman.
Yeah, absolutely. And now we got a question here, and Coach, like you said, you're not going to get too much into the conjecture with Coley, but Roddy, I'll ask you this: do you think maybe the hire of Faulkner kind of is a preemptive move, perhaps, for the departure of Coley?
I don't see it.
Okay.
And it's nothing against Buster. I just don't. I mean, where are you going? Maybe quarterbacks coach. That was my first thought. If Coley left, and he'd go over and coach quarterbacks. But
seems like maybe you'd want Monken there.
See, that's my thought there. It's like, okay, and what are you going to do? Make Buster special teams? I mean, possible, but I don't know. I like the coach's take that this guy will come in like a Jay Johnson, because I don't think people give Jay Johnson enough credit because he's so behind the scenes. He's not listed as one of those official coaches, but when he was at Georgia, his film breakdowns, of the other teams and scouting and self-scouting, pre-scouting and self-scouting, fantastic. Guy has a ton of knowledge. So,
plus he was an all-conference quarterback at up there at Northern Iowa. I mean, the guy's played the position, and
that's what was Mel Tucker's first pick. He's like, hey, I'm going here.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that was the first guy he called, but it was one of the first bits of news that came out was, hey, Jay Johnson's going with him. And Mel Tucker, that man knows his football.
Hey,
so
really good
he's
year.
going to pick somebody smart.
First year they were 5-7 and had a couple games they lost in overtime. It's a big turnaround for them, and they're really doing good recruiting. I think they're going to, do a really good job in that Pac-12 with a lot like what Mario Cristobal's doing at Oregon, using that Alabama, that Georgia footprint, on the national recruiting and, really coming in there with a lot of analysts and recruiting people and personnel people and really scouring the country for good talent. And, Mel knows how to do it.
Now, I don't know. I mean, maybe with Watson here.
Mel actually coached on the Jaguar staff when Todd was there. So they were together too.
See, I never know. Every coach where they've been. I have no idea. But I do like that. If say, when you talk about Watson, Georgia's offensive analyst, we've already broken the news about multiple guys who are in that kind of defensive quality control, like Austin Armstrong leaving. We've seen other guys getting jobs going elsewhere. Usually that offensive, defensive analyst or that offensive, defensive quality control guy, it's usually like a 1-year gig, 2-year gig. And especially if you can get
if you look at the way some of them moving, I want to congratulate to Austin. People don't hear about these guys, but really behind-the-scenes guy, very immaculate in the way he worked at things and just really detailed guy. And, I'm sure Kirby helped him, but the real key there was Coach Lanning has an existing relationship with the new defensive coordinator there. Rhodes has left and gone with Aranda or whatever his name.
Dave Aranda.
Aranda, excuse me. Help me, Rhonda. So he's gone with him to Baylor. But Lanning had worked with the new DC and, helped Austin get that job. And I think that's part of your deal as a coach. You want to keep people, but at the same time, you want to help promote them. And congratulations to Austin getting married here soon. Really? Just a really good young man, and I'm glad for him. And I'm glad for I'm sure that we'll bring in some new guys here. That's one thing that they have the coaches convention, that Kirby sends some of the people out there to interview some young guys for these roles and how they'll come in. We got 2 new strength coaches. I saw where you talked about that. I don't know anything about either one of them, but it's always good to have people, in there quickly when you lose 2 like we did. Ed.
You're right in the middle of the off season. These guys are doing lifts now.
Ed Ellis and Jamil both. I think Jamil's a rising star. I could see him being the guy down the road that just would, when Scott Sinclair decides to retire or what. I mean, he's a big time strength guy.
I feel like Scott Sinclair may not retire. He may outlive all of us, based on what we know about conventional health.
I like Scott. I can see he's been a big part of the success here.
I wanted to ask you this. We're getting a lot of questions over on the board, Coach, about Todd Monken's offense, and I thought this one was particularly an interesting one. Georgia Devil Dogs asked, he says,
Did you watch the Falcons this year?
Yeah.
It's Todd Monken's offense. I mean, that's the guy calling the plays there.
That's true. That's
was,
true. Dirk Cutter.
Dirk Cutter, that's
Yep.
who they work. Tampa Bay, that's pretty much their offense, I think.
He says
Now, in college, you might change back a little bit, some of the things that you do with the RPOs, but very good running game, throws the ball down the field. I mean, be nice if Julio would come over here, too. It's just, that's where it all kind of, to me, that's what they did at Tampa Bay, and a lot of the stuff he did at Southern Miss was the same.
anything that stands out to you, though, particularly that lines up with Jamie Newman's skill set and makes you, feel like that could be something that kind of went into this decision?
Well, when I did those games at Southern Miss, they didn't really run a lot of quarterback predetermined runs like quarterback counter or zone keep or things like that. They did run the quarterback draw out of an empty, which is really, no backs, which is really a very good way to beat some of these different exotic coverage. And you saw Joe Burrow you saw Joe Brady calling them for Burrow in the game where they ran the quarterback draw really big, set up that last score for him. They ran it on the goal line. So I think he was good at doing that and really good at throwing the ball to their backs. Like I said, Edo Smith and that other kid, I don't remember what his name was, caught a lot of balls too. So, but very, very good vertical passing game too, which I like. Throwing the ball over the middle, he seemed to do a good job with that. They had a really good tight end that
over the middle. That's been no man's land the last few years.
But the tight end was very efficient at underneath stuff, misdirection, crossing routes and things like that. And he just had a thing that sticks out. They had this unbelievable field goal kicker that was just Tommy gun guy, kicked some from way out, but they didn't kick a lot of short ones. They were scoring touchdowns.
You mentioned it's interesting. You mentioned Edo Smith. We got a lot of questions about James Cook. A guy, little kind of a smaller running back out of the backfield. You mentioned some of the things that they're able to do with that in the Monken offense. Be interesting to see how that benefits James Cook this year.
Yeah, James just had too many injuries this year. I mean, whenever every time he got ready. But I think it'll be interesting to see him and what they did with Edo a lot there at Southern Miss was a lot like what LSU did with
Edwards-Helaire, yeah.
Edwards-Helaire, where they line him up out, and we did that against Florida really good, where we had Harrion lined up outside or Swift outside and then brought them back in, but had the mismatches on the perimeter. So, it'll be come to the spring game. We'll see. And then we won't show anything because we played the first game.
Hey, look for the deep ball that won't be there.
I did want to say, too, don't ever let people tell you that Kirby Smart doesn't listen to the fans because just like you wanted, he went out and got LSU's passing game coordinator. Now, given he was the passing game coordinator from 05 to 06, so not Joe Brady, but you got your wish one way or the other.
He was there with Les Miles, right?
That's right. That is right.
And he had known Les from when he was at Oklahoma State.
Mm-hmm. Yes, Oklahoma State, LSU, Jacksonville, Oklahoma State again. Southern Miss is the head coach.
Hey, was he there when Georgia played Oklahoma State?
That's a good question.
I have to ask Dave.
No, I don't think so.
Georgia played them in like 2000.
I think they'd wrapped that series already.
Yeah, we got behind early in that game out there too, didn't we?
Going up against one of the
UGA,
best
Oklahoma
wide
State
receivers ever, who never.
What was that series? The last, those two. We're trying to figure out if he was there. I don't think so though.
It's like 2011, something like that. When was it?
Well, he might have been there if it was 11.
Just remember the giant paddles whacking.
07, 09. No, he was in Jacksonville at that time.
For the Jags?
Yeah. Oh. But you got to think, I mean, if you look at this guy's career trajectory, starting in 2000, he gets to Louisiana Tech. And really from there, I mean, it's not like he ever has to take a severe step back at all. You go from La Tech, Oklahoma State, LSU, Jacksonville, Oklahoma State again. Southern Miss is the head coach, Tampa Bay OC, Browns OC, and now the OC at Georgia. So pretty nice career trajectory. Yeah. You can tell that he's pretty highly thought of in the way that he's been able to maintain.
Yeah, and I think he had some really interesting scenarios last year after he got out. They got let go at Tampa. I know several jobs that he was right in the thick of things. I know he talked to the Jaguars because Doug Marrone, who coached with me, told him he talked to him. And so I think this year he probably had the same thing. He had the Eagles jobs open. He had the Jaguars. But Jimmy Sexton told him he knew Kirby.
So come on to Georgia. Could be the offensive coordinator in college. I like the hire. I like bringing Buster Douglas. And again, losing Sam Pittman is huge.
Buster Douglas would be an interesting hire.
So Buster Faulkner.
You said Buster Douglas?
Yeah. I do it every time.
When was he beating that guy in Japan, or what was it?
It's been a while. So you bring them in. Losing Sam was big. Losing Scott Fountain, big. But you bring it in talented guys. Kirby just the same exact thing he does on the recruiting trail. You lose all these guys to the NFL. He brings in talented replacements. You lose guys to transfer. You lose guys to injury. He brings in replacements. I swear, all he does is sit around and look at Plan B, Plan C, Plan D.
He's always.
We saw offers going out last night.
Yeah.
And when you look at the original staff now, I think Schumann and Dell are the only two left unless Coley stays, right?
Yeah, you're right. Wow. That's a lot of turnover for 4 years.
Yeah, no kidding.
Anyway.
But the first year we were able to add 10. The first year we just had 9, I think.
Yeah. So still a lot. Speaking of turnover, if your car won't turn over, you need to go out to Athens Ford, get them to fix it. Cool thing, if you check out Athens Ford, you can hit the live chat and talk to them, so you don't actually have to, if you say you're busy at work, you don't want to have people to catch you, if you're not doing your job or just kind of hanging out.
Maybe you're perusing the vent at UGASports.com.
Just saying. And you need to reach out to them and say, hey, look, my car's making this sound, and if you can type it out, they can tell you what's going on with it. But you can also make your appointment. So if you go to Athens Ford, click on service, it says make your appointment. So you tell them what's doing. Are you a returning customer or a new customer? What services do you need? It pops up the calendar. It lets you pick the spot. How easy is that? You don't have to call them up and say, hey, what do you have available next Thursday at 9? You just go ahead and put it in there. So if you need an oil change, any customization work done, they do amazing stuff out there in the customs area. Something you want to get looked at, something you want to get done. Like I had a roof rack put on mine. Of course, I set up the appointment, went out there, sat in that very nice waiting room with the great big recliners and nice comfy couch, the free coffee, free drinks, free Coke drinks, soft drinks, not cocktails. Although if you carried in some vodka, they probably wouldn't care if you mixed it with something. I'm not saying they would, but I'm not saying they would.
Here's how we lose that sponsorship.
Just saying. Swing out to our friends at Athens Ford. They will take great care of you. And if you need a new vehicle, they have a ton of specials. But do me a favor and go to their website, athensford.com, before you go out there and hit, yes, I would like $500 off of a vehicle, new or pre-owned. They will automatically give you $500 just to visit their website. So it's pretty easy.
Skip the vodka if you're taking a test drive. All right. Got a lot of questions rolling in. Of course, one of the big storylines to talk about today, about 2 hours before we came on the air, UGA picks up the top quarterback in the class of 2021 in Brock Vandagriff. 5-star out of Prince Avenue out there in Bogart, Georgia. Coached up by his father, Greg Vandagriff, a very good coach, has been all over the area and has really helped to maintain that program since the departure of Jeff Herron. They've not dropped off at all. Coach, your thoughts on Brock? I'm interested to see if you've had a chance to watch some film and see what you think of it.
I've never had a chance to watch him play live. Don't get out to the high school games as much as I used to because of my wife's situation. But I think certainly the fact that when he did make that decision to go to Oklahoma, a lot of us were shocked, because thought that, just looked like a no-brainer to come here because of what our situation was with Jake leaving and all that, But, absence sometimes doesn't make the heart grow fonder. I'm sure his family, listening to him, had a big tie on getting him to stay close to home, because the one thing I always used to tell every kid when I'd go into their home, and I also did it, know how I felt, the guy that I really wanted to watch me play more than anybody, and of course I wanted my mother, but she didn't understand. I wanted my dad to watch me play. He watched me play my whole life, every game I ever played. So you go in there and you say, hey, do you really think that your parents are going to be able to watch you play every game, and your grandparents, all that? So I'm sure that was big for him.
Great grandparents, too.
We've heard that. But, you know, he's a very athletic kid, got a good arm, and grown up with ball, you know, with his dad being the coach. And he knows what it means to be a quarterback at Georgia, because, you know, that's the thing about David Green growing up, you know, over there in Gwinnett. It's a huge factor. If you can, guys like him and DJ Shockley and Zaire, all these guys over the years, you do it in the state, boy, you got it set. So he should be kind of like, you know, Pied Piper, too, attracting a lot of good players, knowing that you got a guy like him coming in for that 21 class. So huge get for Georgia.
I really love the pickup for all the reasons you mentioned. His dad, Greg Vandagriff, said, look, it sets you up for life. We've come to realize that, you know, it's something that we taught at Brock about. You go to Oklahoma, you play quarterback, you come back to Georgia, that's not going to mean as much as if you stayed out there. He said, but you play here, you come live here, you're set up. I'm interested in your thoughts.
Hopefully win big, too.
Well, sure. But I'm interested in your thoughts about him being so close and how that can be an advantage for Georgia, because Patrick Garvin released the other day, or just earlier today, only 2 Athens area kids have been taken or have committed to Georgia, I think since 2000 is what he's
2002.
had. 2002. And that was Jaleel Higgins and Zach Mettenberger.
Really?
So having a kid of this caliber, this close to home, how can that influence recruiting?
Well, I think for his standpoint, the fact that he can come over here and study tape, you know, you can come on campus as many times as you want to, you know, as long as you're wherever you're from, as long as you pay your way. So it'd be easy access for him to come over here and watch a lot of practices and get a jump start on everything. Hopefully he can graduate early and come in next January. But as far as local guys, I mean, a lot of these young kids will recognize the fact that, hey, that's the quarterback at Georgia. You know, I want to go follow his footsteps. So there's some good players here that have left. You know, I mean, we've lost some when I was here. You know, but we were able to get Damon Gary, and he did a terrific job for us. But we lost the corner to South Carolina, which
Dante
Robinson
yep.
was a bad loss for us. But I still get on Rodney Garner about that, but I think it's just a big deal for him to stay at home. You know, a lot of times, kid, and I wouldn't say this at Georgia, but a lot of times there's so much scrutiny in the local area that a lot of times kids just leave and go where they don't get that at other schools, you know. And I think Brock certainly understands the scrutiny he's going to be under, and he can't be in any tougher situation than being a coach's son, which, you know, everybody's out there is probably, you know, early say, hey, he's getting to play because of the coach. But they know what kind of kid he is in that small school. So I really don't have a really good feel for a lot about him, like hopefully I'm going to have here as far as, you know, everything I've heard. He's a great kid and all that, and I know his dad's always been nice to me. So kudos to Kirby. And, you know, I think certainly Coley did a good job on him, too. You got to give him a lot of credit. And I think from what you wrote that they had a good meeting with Coach Monken and, you know, solidified everything about what they were doing, too. So because you need to know who your boss is going to be, and he's going to be working under Todd. So that was important, I'm sure.
Well, and I mentioned, too, over on Twitter today, I think that the advantage of you got a kid going up to, I don't know, a kid goes and visits Knoxville, or a 5-star receiver goes and visits Knoxville, or he goes and visits Penn State, and he's from Florida, and they drove, and he's driving back, and they say, you know what, we'll just swing by Georgia. They're going to be able to get on the horn and say, hey, Brock, why don't you come over and talk to this kid? And he's going to be able to get a feel for that guy, and I think that's a really unique advantage.
It is. That's a good point.
I will tell you, I have seen Brock a lot. He's torched Athens Christian. He's we've been frustrated watching that kid just pick us apart. You know, when back in middle school.
Everyone will be happy to see Brock graduate.
Yes,
I think.
yes,
Everyone at Athens
absolutely.
Christian, as Georgia fans, and also to
Yes.
get him out of the
Yeah,
league.
it's like, get the hell out of our district, man. Come on, you're killing us. But a couple things about Brock that folks may not know. I've mentioned numerous times that is a tough kid. I've seen him take just an absolute beating, bounce back up. Very accurate. I mean, to be the number one rated pro style passer, you're going to expect a high amount of accuracy. We've seen that. Now, yes, he plays in 1A private. That is not the toughest conference out there, or toughest division of Georgia high school football. But we've had him in camps, and if you watch kids' mechanics, and again, I don't want to come off as some like quarterback analyst. I'm a jumped up photographer, but I can tell you, having done this a long time, that kid looks sharp when he goes through his mechanics. Brad Johnson signed off on him in 8th grade, saying this kid could play.
Well,
I'm like,
Tate Ratledge played 1A private ball. That seemed to work out okay for everybody.
I'm just saying you can get great players out of there.
Sure.
My only fear for Brock is like, okay, a minor adjustment period as it goes up against the likes of an Eric Stokes or a Tyson Campbell, guys like that, a Tariq Stevenson. But, it's like, okay, this is tougher. Here's a kid who's going to work his tail off until he can beat those guys on throws. So
that's where coming in early helps you so much.
Yeah.
I mean, just gives you so. You look at, even though Jake Fromm played in a really good offense and pretty high level league down there, that spring that he had was invaluable to getting him ready for when Eason got hurt. He was
8
ready
plays into the season, and he was thrown into the fire. If he hadn't
Right.
been here spring, God, can you imagine what would have happened?
Yeah, I mean,
and then the following week at Notre Dame,
he would have reacted okay, knowing the way Jake is, but still that he went through the briar patch in the spring. I mean, because he had some ups and downs, but that's part of anybody going through your first spring practice. I mean, but I think that's what'll help Brock getting in here, and I think it's going to help Beck. I mean, let's don't lose sight of the fact that Beck was a highly recruited guy that had a chance to go to Alabama and decommitted, right, and then came here. Or was he committed to Alabama, or was he got down?
He was committed to Alabama at one point.
And
yes.
then Florida really wanted him, and
and you got, like you said, you
we
mentioned
continue to just get quarterbacks from Florida. I mean, I'm talking about take them away that they really own. I mean, I thought everybody was talking about. Of course, you weren't. You said you thought he was coming here, but everybody's, hey, well, I guarantee you, Mullen's going to jump all over Vandagriff now. But
well, I think he tried.
Yeah, I was about to say there was you saw one of our Florida publisher.
Yeah.
Retweeted our story, and he's like, "Well, Brock Vandagriff is off the list," and I'm like, "Where are you turning to now, Dan?"
Yeah, sure. Randall
Felipe
White.
Franks. he left.
Randall White here with an interesting one for you, Coach.
Where did Felipe's going to Arkansas? Huh?
He's going in Sam Pittman.
Sam Pittman's doing work.
It's going to be interesting to see running that offense. That what they're going to do with that offense. Kendall Browse.
Yeah.
That Baylor offense.
Very good. That's good. They got a good,
Coach
got a
Pittman
good
was
staff
like,
together up there.
You're going to do what? Let's line up and run Burma Road.
Randall White here with a question. Coach, I'm interested to know your insight on this because I'm sure you know more than I do on it. He says, as a local commit, what kind of things can Brock participate in? How many practices can he attend? How much of a jump can he get on learning the offense?
He can come over here 365 if he wants to come here as many times as he wants. He can't work out with the team. He can't lift weights over here. He can't do anything until he enrolls. But he can come over here again this summer to camp like he did last year and throw to a lot of these receivers that are around here that are be coming in, to be 2021 receivers. But I think it's just a tremendous advantage to be able to, over the years we've seen guys come to spring practice and what they did. We saw Milton last year here.
Yeah.
I mean, we talked about it on our show. It's nothing like watching your fellow players if you are a dog, or like we saw Ryan Fitzpatrick out there. I mean, what's Fitzpatrick's first name for us? The tight end.
Godey. Ryland.
No, what's Fitzpatrick?
John.
Oh, John Fitzpatrick.
Yeah, we didn't have the quarterback here, but John Fitzpatrick came over here a couple springs ago, and he was watching. So you look at your position coach, and you go in there and meet with them. You can do all that. So it'll be good for him, and he'll have a really good grasp. And with computers now, and the way they break down stuff and tapes, and their offense is on a little, little thing you can send out to him. He'll be way ahead of the curve as far as knowing what to do by the time he gets here.
A lot of people asking too. Actually, we'll touch on this one because this is something we can dive into pretty heavily. I want to touch on this in the next segment.
Before we move on to that, let's give a big shout out to our friends at Aaron Overhead Doors, huge sponsor of UGASports.com, huge sponsor of our podcast. They sponsor our Georgia 321 report where we break a lot of news. Ryan, Lucia, and the folks out there are just a wonderful group of dog-supporting business owners and managers. If you get a chance and you are a Georgia fan, you can actually call up Aaron Overhead Doors, and of course, you can set up your for the time for them to come out, just like you can when you're dropping your car off at Athens Ford. You set up you can book online. So you say, hey, I need you guys to come out this time. They come out for free. They don't charge you for it. But if you do decide to go with them and you tell them you are a Georgia fan, you're going to get 10% off on whatever you do. So if you need a $1,000 worth of work done, you're going to get it for $900. You saved $100 just by telling them you're a Georgia fan. I don't know a lot of companies, I don't know any company really, that says, hey, we're willing to discount our product or our services to you by 10% just because you are a fan of a program. And hell, and they're not going to come by your house and make you take them into your Bulldog room or anything like that. You just tell them. They're going to trust that you're an honest person and take you at your word if you're a Georgia fan. Now, if you're not a Georgia fan, you pay full fare. But you should be a Georgia fan, so that's your fault. Oh, and then they're bringing a key lime pie. I lost my train of thought.
Yeah,
you need to finish this commercial because I'm lost. Anyway, if you get a chance, check out the folks at Aaron Overhead Doors. That's AARON. I know
Aaron.
My enunciation is garbage, and I run it together really fast, but it's AARON, like Aaron, the name. Aaron Overhead Doors. 4.96 rating from 669 verified nearby now reviews. So if when you want to look them up on Yelp or whatever the rating things are, they are through the roof. So get a chance, check them out.
Get your 10% off.
Yep.
All right. Platinum Glove 13 over on the board with a very interesting question. And I think that this is one that we can kind of get into pretty heavy here. 2020 almost wrapping up. We saw a couple offers, as you mentioned, go out last night. Lad McConkey, the 5'11", about 165, 170-pound receiver out of North Murray High School up there in Chatsworth, Georgia. That was a bit of a surprise to see. You just don't, I guess, Luke Griffin was also from North Murray. So you don't see a lot of the North Murray guys popping up everywhere. But Kirby and Hartley go up yesterday, get an in-home visit, get a chance to watch the kid play basketball, decide to move on the offer.
You got to look at it like this. I mean, you're always looking into the future. You got Robertson is going to leave after next year. You got Blaylock up in the air with a knee injury. Hopefully he's going to have, every time I've seen him over there, he's moving around really well. But you also got to look who else is in the fold there as a slot. Maybe Arian Smith will play slot. Who knows what will happen with Rosemy? Who knows? But these other guys, Burton is an outside guy. Robinson's an outside guy. So you gotta think that that's what they're looking at there.
I agree. I completely agree. McConkey, go watch the film. Look, if you don't believe me, the kid from Chatsworth can mix it up like that. Go watch the film.
Kid's got break.
Yeah, he can put some moves on.
Seriously though, why would you ever doubt Kirby taking anybody?
No.
I don't know many. I mean, I can't think of many guys he's missed on since I've been around here. At least as far as what their contribution would be. I mean, just a guy. There hasn't been a complete bust to them. I mean, there probably you could say a couple guys, but I don't want to talk about them. But I'm saying, don't question his roster management. Come on.
Well, that's my point.
What about those bringing in the quarterback, bringing in the tight end? I mean,
plans A, B, C, and D.
Yeah.
I mean, the
and
guy
now he's out there on those 2021 kids.
Yeah, and that's actually what our next question was asking. He says, if you're Kirby going into 2021, who are your personal top 5 wants or biggest needs? What are some of the needs that you're identifying moving out of this cycle and into the next cycle? I mean, is there anything that jumps off the page? Quarterback, certainly. Look, you
got to probably work on some linebackers because all of a sudden you're going to lose some guys there quickly.
Merrick Carter.
Things look good at running back here right now.
He included wants in this one, so I'm going to say, look, you don't often get the chance to take you don't often get the chance to fight for the number 1 offensive tackle in America, though you did get him this year after the re-rankings. But next year's 2021 offensive tackle, top guy, Amarius Mims down there in Cochran, Georgia, just below Macon.
Mims and, Micah
Morris also, yeah. You got Terrence Ferguson, who's a Rival's top 50 player.
Well, I tell you, Terrence Ferguson, watch the tape. You know, he's a little bit underdeveloped physically from the standpoint of just being as big. I don't mean underdeveloped. He's just not as big as those other guys, massive. But, boy, on tape, he jumps out at you the way he plays. You know, and that kid from North Carolina came in here this weekend.
Yeah,
he's
Jared
big
Wilson.
Too, but,
absolutely.
Boy, I tell you, that's the thing about last weekend, just the who's who of really good players coming in here. And they could have gone anywhere, you know, for that weekend.
Yeah, very strong.
Good coverage by you there, you and your cohorts. I mean, I don't know much about these guys, so I read about what you tell me, so that's good. On the 2021s, I do a little bit on the 2020.
I want to point out something with the 2020 kids, back up a little bit. The top 100 is out now, the final top 100 for the Rivals rankings.
Is that on 24/7 or ours?
No, that's on ours.
I was kidding you.
I know.
Give me a bump.
No, I'm cutting you off. Cutting them off. You see this pie down here? You get none.
So when you said the top tackle, who was ranked?
Broderick Jones climbed up to number 1 in the nation.
Good job, Broderick. And you still feel good about him, right?
I do feel good about Broderick.
The James Brown of recruiters.
Can you imagine signing Broderick Jones and Mims in back-to-back classes? Number 1 offensive tackle in the nation, 2 times coming from the state of Georgia. That's pretty good. But speaking of, there are 9 100 guys who are committed or signed with the University of Georgia in the top 100. I'm not a big math guy, but if you have a top 100 players in the nation,
that's
and
almost like
9 of them going to Georgia.
That's almost like getting a 10% deal off of air and the overhead doors.
Oh, wow, that was good. That's good. Hey, write that down. I need to remember that for next week. Broderick
so
Jones.
Give us a 9.
Yeah, Broderick Jones comes in at number 5. Keely Ringo comes in at number 7. So 2 guys in the top 10. Tate Ratledge, another Georgia offensive tackle.
Should be noted, I just double-checked this. The position rankings have not been updated. Georgia with the number 1 and number 2 offensive tackle in the class of 2020.
You took my question because I'm saying Tate Ratledge comes in at number 12. So if you got Tate Ratledge at 12 and Broderick Jones at 5, who is there one? Where did Paris Johnson wind?
Paris Johnson, I believe, becomes 3rd on the list.
That's what he gets for going to Ohio State.
Kendall Milton, it comes in at number 29, so that gives you 4 in the top 30. Darnell Washington comes in at number 32.
I just got to say something else about Kendall Milton, and you keep going. You talk about somebody when he walks down the hall, just move over.
Yeah.
Make sure you give him plenty of room because you don't want to bump into him and have a bruise on your arm.
I thought you were going to say that about Darnell Washington.
Well, I mean, too, but I mean, Kendall Milton.
Yeah, Darnell's just giant.
I'm looking at Kendall Milton like Henry.
Oh, there you go. So you got Kendall Milton at 29, Darnell Washington at 32, Mikhail Sherman. Mikhail, yeah. Okay. I wasn't going to say it badly. 39, so that gives you – and Jalen Carter moves up to number 49 in the nation.
100
About
spots.
time.
100
About
spot
time.
jump for him.
How long did it take for us to get that across to him?
It only matters on the last one.
He could move up to 1.
Yeah, I agree with you. So that gives you 7.
Who's number 1 in the country?
Number 1 in the country is Brian Brissy.
Yeah. He's good.
He is.
So that gives you 7 players in the top 50. So think about that. So now we can say, and there have been times in years past where you could talk about Georgia's players in the top 100, and they started around 65. And
so how many in the top 20 though? We had
3 in the top 20, 5 in the top 32.
9 in the 100.
7 in the top 100. Then Marcus Rosemy comes in at 71, and Cedric Van Pran comes in at 83. So that gives you 9 in the top 100.
And for those of you wondering, because I know some people, I got this question a lot, Darnell Washington does hold on to the 5th star. We just confirmed that. So Kendall Milton, Darnell Washington.
Is Milton
Tate
5
Ratledge,
stars?
Keely Ringo, and Broderick Jones.
How many 5 stars we got?
5.
How many Florida got? No, that's square.
No, well, and then you've got people asking about the Zach Evans thing again. There's all kinds of rumors flying around about that.
I blame you for this.
I blame
this. This is your fault.
No, I just said never say never.
which
I don't know
code,
anything.
Which is code for he's signed and he's coming to
No,
Georgia.
it's not. It's not. That if it was, I would tell you. But I don't know anything about Evans except
blink if he's coming.
who knows what? It's still wide open as far as what he's going to do. But
Don't do all that drinking, man.
No, but you've got. I mean, like I said, the potential remains out there. For that. I'm not saying it's going to happen at all. Florida has one.
Edwards coming
Javon
in this
Dexter.
weekend, and Edwards
Dexter
coming in
up.
this weekend.
Yeah, Dejan Edwards soon to visit as well.
Did he just get another offer? Or another visit? No, he took a visit. Edwards did. Didn't he?
Went to Arkansas this weekend.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Do you ever read your site?
As did Broderick Jones. He was also
knew
up
that
in
one.
Arkansas. But overall, some solid movement for these guys. I think that. I mean, you got to be pretty pleased with how this class is shaking out. If you get the 1 and 2 offensive tackle and you lose Sam Pittman,
That's a good point.
Oh,
wait, don't forget. I mean, you could also get Cedric Van Pran,
True.
one of the top centers at
Lindbergh.
83.
Lindbergh's stud.
yeah, Lindbergh can play.
Oh, he looked fantastic in that Polynesian thing.
Yeah,
I always
Yep.
like getting this. Always like getting a center though, like Van Pran. I mean, you see what Hill's doing here. I mean, it's just this guy's a natural center, and
I also like that Van Pran, one of the smartest kids we've spoken to. Just great football knowledge, but just a very good intellectual guy. When these teams are trying to move around like that 3-3-5 stack we saw against Baylor, where they're trying to trick him. Good luck fooling Van Pran. That kid's he's pretty bright. So like
and
that.
I would say this because I've been saving it. When I see Mims,
That's
in person,
Yeah.
monster.
doesn't make my mouth water. It makes it feel like Niagara Falls. That guy is.
It's ridiculous how
Good
big he is. isn't it?
Lord.
Let's tell the story of the Rivals camp last year. He shows up. Now or maybe it was camp prior to that, but he shows up and we're like, "Who's that kid?" And the number he was wearing was wrong.
Yeah, that's right.
Right? We're like, but who's? And we look at it on the list. We're like, that can't be who that is because. Who's that kid?
Yeah.
We want to know who he. I mean, this guy's just.
Well, he's one of
He's
those
a foot taller than everybody else. Too.
Exactly.
Yeah,
he walks into the camp and he's just. I mean, his shoulders are at the heads of all the other kids. You're like, what's going on here?
Yeah, and you look at him, you're like, that's not who this is.
He was here this summer, and our own players were out there, and he was out there, and I mean, just made some of our players look like.
Very legitimate 6'7.5", 330 pounds. Has really done a great job of reshaping his body. Was a little heavy early on in his career, but really got serious about it. Looks great now, in great shape. And what I really love about him too, speaks to his athleticism and his ability or his footwork. Played a lot of tight end for Bleckley before transitioning to offensive tackle.
Got Muhammad Ali feet.
Ooh.
There you go. I'll take it. But you're going to have a battle on your hands, Georgia fans, because everybody in the nation wants that kid. What's he, number 2 in the nation or something like that?
He is number 2 in the nation, correct.
So you just picked up the number 4 kid in the nation in Brock Vandagriff this morning. If you can get him now, all of a sudden, granted, rankings change, they go up and down. And the reason I bring up the top 100, normally we don't talk about
to
him.
come to Georgia, though, hadn't he?
Mims, yeah, he's pretty high on him for sure.
Hey,
He's still
The dream school, he said.
yeah.
And just looking ahead to next year, for those wondering, you got Amarius Mims in the top 10, Brock Vandagriff, number 4 in the top 10. You've got Tommy Brockermeyer, number 9 in the top 10, who mentioned that Georgia is on his short list recently.
Where's he?
He is out of Texas. He was a kid who did not have an offer, had come down and I think made his top 5 already. Georgia gets in and offers, and immediately he says, nope, I've got a top 6 now.
6. That says a lot for your program when this guy's doing that.
Yep.
I love it.
You're saying he didn't have an offer from us, but he had plenty of others.
Yeah,
What
absolutely.
position?
Offensive tackle. He's a freak.
The one thing that happens to you, and I'll just interject this: you get the guys, your base people, but you get a guy in there like Matt Luke who has extensive ties around the country through other coaching stops that he's made. So you add those to the ones that Georgia already has, and you just naturally pick up some players maybe starting out a little bit ahead of the game in the 2021 class that you wouldn't, right? And then hopefully make up for some that you were behind on because you are Georgia. You know what I mean? Like Mims' case, he just wants to meet the guy. And I think that's something that Kirby's looking into when he makes these hires. I mean, Matt Luke is jumping out there and getting after it.
Our good buddy Gager, who posts all the time over at UGAsports.com. Shout out to you, Gager.
Gager.
He says Barrett Carter looks like a Roquan Smith clone. If for 2021, I told somebody the other day, somebody on the board said, I guess I'd be pretty happy if Barrett Carter committed. I said, you should be thrilled if you were able to land that kid. And especially if he brings Jordan Hancock with him from North Gwinnett.
Ask Gager where he's going, because this guy was the national winner when it comes to predicting where kids were going. So, Gager, tell us. We need to get him on staff.
I would add this about Roquan. I saw him over here right after he had his surgery. He came back to let Dr. Hancock do the surgery, who did the one on his other shoulder. And he was talking about how much – the preparation that he had here at Georgia as far as defensive, the way we call defenses, the way we run coverages, the way they kept him in the game, and then take him out, really helped him at making that transition to the Bears, and particularly the fact that they switched coordinators from one year to the next, but, everything that he learned at Georgia really helped him keep his base up there. So I think that's something that
Kirby needs to record that play for every defensive guy that comes in.
Well, they do that, but I thought it was good to hear Roquan talking about that the way it's, he's really high on Coach Schumann, and he should be. I mean, there's a good example of a guy that nobody knew anything about 4 years ago, and now, congratulations, I saw where Coach Schumann and his wife had their little boy baptized yesterday. What a great addition he's been to our staff, and had no experience coaching on the field.
Rising star in the profession.
Right.
First, again, that was Kirby's first call, and we're like, who the hell is Schumann?
Yeah.
And that's what he gets. So, again.
Who the hell are you?
I'm just saying, to Coach's point, you trust him. Look, I mean, if you trust him with coaches, you trust him with players, and then you hopefully you trust that he can get it done for a national title. Speaking of big titles, there's going to be a Super Bowl game in less than 2 weeks. Great place to watch it would be Academia Brewing Company. They have a Super Bowl tailgate from 6:30 p.m. till midnight or however long the game goes. Great place. I said when I first started the show, I said to come by Champions and watch the game, but another great place to watch would be Academia. They have the giant projection screens up. The best beer anywhere. Tons of different beers, tons of collaborations with other breweries.
Yeah.
Got the word right today. And when you get a chance, you come into town, you got a whole bunch of people, swing by there. Check them out. Just go in, check out the lounge on the right where you can just sit in the nice couch and have a beer. Walk up, get a little flight, try different ones, and then hit the food. So if you got a quick lunch, you don't have to go out there for all these events that we talk about, but they do host some fantastic events, and the Super Bowl tailgate will be a big one to go to. Also, I want to give a big shout out to our friends at Europi. They're still opening new locations, 70-plus locations all over the country, mostly here in the Southeast, because it started here in Athens, Georgia, about half a mile from where we are sitting. When you have guys like Drew and Natalie French, they go to Italy, they come back, they decide to start the whole Europi franchise. Georgia graduates, Georgia fans, Georgia supporters. And every time you go and stop in there, you are taking care of someone who takes care of your dog. So same with the friends at Academia. Again, the big Georgia supporters, Georgia alums. So take care of them as well.
Absolutely. No question about it. No, I'm just checking in on all our competition to make sure that we're still beating them.
So let's talk a little recruiting here, and I'm going to be Ed McMahon asking you, Johnny.
Oh, yes, sir. You are correct, sir.
Hey, read it. Karnak. So we've got, depending on, we've lost some guys here, that came declared for the draft and all that and all these situations. But how many guys do you think, let's just say we get Van Pran and Broderick, how many more guys will we take?
I think
who do you project those being?
All right, so realistically, I want to go over here and make sure I've got my numbers right as of today. I I think you're sitting at 21. Yes. All right, so you got 21 total commitments. So that's counting Van Pran and Jones, obviously. So you've got room, I think, beyond that for probably, I would say, maximum 3, maybe 2. And
Probably that receiver. We just talked to
McConkey.
McConkey.
Yeah,
Right.
I feel pretty good about that one. And then 2 others. And then I think that just based on what we're seeing with the offers that are going out right now, I think you definitely want a defensive back to finish this out. And there's a couple of guys I'm watching. There's some guys that we haven't even really talked about yet over at UGAsports.com, but we're going to. So get over there and check that out.
Way to tease it.
And then, I think that there's a running back spot available if everything gets cleared up with Edwards or something comes of this Evans scuttlebutt. So
see, it's your fault now. Last week it's your fault.
I think what happens there with your answer is good, and then playing devil's advocate. I think on the running back, it's just going to be what does Dell think.
Sure.
We need to supplement this team along with what, of course, Coach Smart does. But, you got an influx of a new offensive coordinator now. Does he look at the tape and see some things that he might want to add some other person that on offense? Because we do have a little disparity in the numbers on our defense and offensive allocation on scholarships, don't we?
Yeah, I believe so.
It's like
a little bit slanted.
I mean, but head coach defense, so but can't get enough of those guys. But
that defensive coach keeps landing 5-star quarterbacks.
I've really been surprised though which is great, shows a lot about. We've only lost, one guy. We lost Otis Reese, but I would have thought we'd have had some more guys that aren't getting to play hit that portal.
I did as well.
I guess maybe some of them might wait till the spring and see how it shakes out. But that speaks a lot on how much they believe in getting an opportunity here, don't you think?
Yeah.
Well, I had a couple of players tell me I'll be in the portal that never did.
Yeah.
So, I think I don't want to say it was those not exit interviews, but the end of the season interview where you go sit down with your position coach or you sit down with Kirby and he's like, hey, here's what you did right. Sure. Here's what you did wrong. Here's what we see going forward. Here's what you need to work on. I think a lot of that was that, you're recruiting those kids to stay when they have that option. And you're like, look, if you do X, Y, and Z, you'll set yourself up for more playing time. Now, are you telling me you're incapable of doing X, Y, and Z? I know that you're not because I recruited you here. So you do this, and some kids are going to be like, well, I don't think that's fair. I don't like what you're saying. And others have said, no, okay, I'll take you at your word. Let's try it. I'll see you in this fall. We'll go through spring together, and we'll see if I do what you're saying, it matches up. Sure. So I think to Coach's point, I knew other players were going to be going into the portal, and they didn't. So that is another good recruiting job, roster management win for Kirby and his staff.
And speaking on his behalf, I just feel like that he is brutally honest with these guys, which is the only way he can be. Yeah. One of the worst things you can ever tell somebody is give them false hope, tell them they're doing something when they're not. He really lets them. That's why you see so many young guys. A guy like the running back from South Florida played in every kind of special team situations this year and used his eligibility. But, he really got in and did a good job when he got in the bowl game too. So these kids know they're going to get a shot to get on the field. And then if they prove themselves, kind of like the Tay Crowder did on special teams, then he got a shot at linebacker. You know what I mean? So maybe Notori Johnson comes back as an offensive lineman. Schaefer's coming back now. But it's just – I thought it was really, really good that we only had that one situation there on the guy leaving. And, when you see way Scene played in the game, it's tough. It's hard to think you're going to have a really good shot because that guy's
Lewis is legit. There's no two questions about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wanted to point out, I put this on Twitter today. Brock Vandagriff, under Kirby Smart, the 4th 5-star quarterback to commit. Jacob Eason re-upped his commitment. I'm counting that. Jake Fromm, Justin Fields, and people kind of gave me hell about it, and they were like, oh well, what is this? Is this a joke? Because look, the guy's able to sell it. The position. Yes, some guys left, but it's not like it stopped others from coming in.
See, I posted almost the same thing within like 15 seconds of you doing it because I guess we had this. We're working too long together. We had the same realization at the same time. I put it out there, and I had one guy go, well, which of those guys is taking significant snaps for him? I'm like, listen, idiot. I didn't say it, but as I thought it, I'm like, one of those 5 stars went the entire first season for Kirby.
Still got to get him
you know?
here. You got to get.
Yeah.
I mean,
and then another
that
guy
in itself speaks highly.
Yeah, but then the other guy just played, 3 years for you. So Kirby's had a 5-star quarterback, under center.
Yeah.
4 years here that he
With 3 different coordinators, he's been able to get 4 or 5-star quarterbacks.
Just saying, you can complain about one of them transferring away or 2 of them transferred away. It's not like Joe Burrow finished up where he started.
Where did we finish this year? Weren't we 4th?
4th in the nation with 2 new coordinators.
Everybody's just like me. You feel
good
bad
enough,
about
Coach.
South Carolina, but hey, we played the heck out of LSU the first half. I mean, better than anybody the first half down the stretch. Now, of course, Auburn did in the rain, but who knows? LSU had one of those magical years. But we talk about a mass exodus. I mean, if you had some duct tape right now, that would be good to help them on there, wouldn't it? Good Lord. But I'm sure they'll turn it around. They got good players and all, but losing both coordinators, well, I guess he's not Ensminger's one, but they lost Brady and Aranda, and then they lose Heisman Trophy guy, and then 9 other juniors come out.
They're going to need a
Roster
They're going to need a sheet with new names, faces.
Did you hear
Did you
hear that
go back to the
Did you hear that
tape.
Bo Pelini might be going back there as a defensive coordinator?
I did hear that. Really? Yeah. I saw that on Twitter yesterday.
That's
That's a possibility.
awesome.
I hope so. All right. We got to wrap this up because I got some stuff to do this afternoon.
You do?
There's another little tease for you. Yeah. Get over to UGA Sports.
You gonna do some stories?
Maybe let's say around 2:30.
Really?
Yeah.
So you're going to work today finally.
Yeah. Why not? Why not? I'm sober. I might as well.
Ish.
Get it in while I
big
can.
shout out to our friends at Athens Ford, Aaron over at Doors, Your Pie, Academia Brewing Company, 365 Game Day, and 11 Live, of course, if you're watching on 11 Live. Thanks for the 11 Live folks for having me on the air the other day. My apologies for using blue language on air.
What'd you say?
I can't say it, Coach. It's a bad word.
What did it start with?
Started with an A. So you're not allowed to say that, and they had to apologize, and it was my fault. And I sincerely, even though I joked about it, I sincerely apologize for using the wrong word on
Mary
11
Beth
Live.
Smart on you.
Or Mary
I was
Donnan.
about to say Mary Donnan.
I didn't say one bad word.
So our shout out to 11 Live for us. Even if they never had me back, I do appreciate it. So it was.
Yeah. What's today's date?
Today's date is January 21st.
I was going to say this is my last show at being 74 years old, but I got one more maybe.
All right. I hope so.
No, I mean I got one more show. Hopefully I got.
you need to tell
Hey,
us.
hey, I'm
You
getting
want
ready.
to tell us something?
Hey,
Coach?
yeah.
We got one more show. Maybe.
Hey, get your
I really
questions
did
in
a
now.
poor job on that one, didn't I?
Get your questions
Hey, get them all
early.
in next week. That's it.
All right.
History, man.
Thanks for tuning in.